I think Bud gonna cook Canelo. I think he's gonna cook him. I think, Canelo a hell of a fighter, but I think Bud just got all the tools to beat him. But I think it's a possibility if Canelo gets to acting out of line and not understanding that Bud can crack too. So.
Shakur Stevenson didn't just pick Crawford over Canelo, he doubled down on it. And guess what? He's not alone, because from boxing's brightest stars to seasoned legends, the majority are betting on Bud to beat boxing's biggest name. While many fans continue to raise concerns about the size difference between Terence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez, Shakur Stevenson isn't one of them. In his eyes, the narrative about size is overblown, and it's not coming from the fighters, but from the media and fans who keep trying to make it a factor.
You don't think the weight difference is gonna be too big of an advantage?
I think y'all make that something, in certain fights,
boxing makes it something, not us.
Shakur pointed out that while someone like David Benavidez is much bigger than Crawford, Canelo isn't. Physically solid? Yes. But regarding height and overall size, Shakur says Canelo isn't as imposing as people think. To him, this isn't a mismatch, it's just another challenge Crawford can solve. And if you ask Shakur who's got the advantage,
like if this was like a Benavidez, he's actually a lot bigger than Bud, so that would like apply. But I feel like with Canelo, he's like physically kind of big, but like height-wise, he's kind of small. So I don't think so, no.
Trainer Stephen Bredman Edwards, one of boxing's most respected minds, has been firm from the start. He's picking Terence Crawford to beat Canelo Alvarez. While public opinion has started to shift toward Crawford after his dominant performances, Edwards makes it clear he never jumped on the bandwagon, he built it. He explained that from the moment talks about this super fight began, he's always believed Crawford had the tools to pull it off.
Obviously, Crawford.
I always like Crawford. I always like Crawford in the fight. I think Crawford's gonna win.
He's gonna pull it off.
Yeah.
You think he's gonna be like just? What's gonna be?
I just think he's just gonna be too much.
A lot of people are changing their opinion.
I always said it. I always said I like Crawford from the very beginning of the fight.
But Edwards doesn't paint the fight as easy. He breaks it down with sharp realism. He believes the early rounds will be dangerous for Crawford, especially with Canelo's timing, power, and ability to punish mistakes early. That's where Crawford will need to be sharp, cautious, and fully switched on. However, as the fight wears on, Edwards sees a clear shift in momentum. In his view, the later the fight goes, the more it tips in Bud's favor.
I disagree with that. I think Crawford's going to be the stronger fight in the later rounds. I think the early part of the fight is where he got to be careful at. I think the early part of the fight, he could get clipped if he's not careful. But I think the later rounds, I think he functions better in the later rounds than Canelo does.
For Edwards, it's not just about skill, it's about conditioning, IQ, and the ability to adjust over 12 rounds. And in that department, he's betting on Crawford all the way. That late round dominance is exactly why trainers like Stephen Edwards are all in on Crawford. But not everyone's focused on how the fight plays out. Some are starting to wonder if it even happens at all. Promoter Eddie Hearn, who's worked closely with Canelo in recent years, recently suggested that Alvarez might retire before facing Crawford. And his reasoning wasn't just physical, but deeply psychological.
He still has the desire for those training camps and those fights, but I just feel like that desire might be fading a little bit. Not because of his love, but just because of age and like life. Do you know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, like the Crawford fight will definitely get him up for it. But I was actually watching that fight thinking I wouldn't be surprised if he retired and actually didn't fight Crawford, because I don't think he'll want to lose to Crawford, a much smaller guy, just because he's at the end of the road. But the fights.
Hearn does admit the fight is massive and the money might be too good to turn down, but he ends with a prediction of his own. If Canelo takes it, he retires right after. Why? Because losing to a naturally smaller man like Crawford could damage his legacy more than any payday could repair.
But the fight's so big and the money's so big, he's gonna have to take it. I bet he retires after that fight.
So while fighters and trainers are predicting how Crawford will beat Canelo, Hearn's the first big name hinting that Canelo might walk away before Bud ever gets the chance. And while some believe Canelo may retire before the Crawford fight ever materializes, like legendary promoter Bob Arum are questioning whether the version of Canelo that shows up is even worth watching. The Hall of Fame promoter didn't hold back after Canelo's recent win. In fact, Arum went as far as to say Canelo's last few performances looked more like financial transactions than real prize fights. A champion who fights for checks, not crowds.
Because Canelo has shown in his last few fights that he's just a businessman. He's not in there to entertain the public. He just takes the big check.
That's a brutal accusation, especially coming from someone who's promoted fighters for over 50 years. But Arum didn't stop there. He said if, and only if, Canelo actually shows up to fight like a real warrior, then it could be something worth watching. But that's a big if.
But again, if Canelo really fights, because I think it's safe to say Terence always fights. He doesn't know anything else. So then it could be a very good, interesting fight.
In Arum's eyes, the contrast between Canelo and Crawford couldn't be more glaring. While Bud still brings the hunger, the grit, and the old school energy to every round, Arum says the version of Canelo we've been getting lately looks checked out, a superstar more interested in surviving 12 rounds than stealing the show.
Who is Canelo? What Canelo is going to show up? The Canelo who's looking to cash a big check, or the Canelo that really wants to fight like a fighter? Now, the Canelo we've seen the last 2 years is not only boring, but doesn't really have an incentive to mix it up and to entertain people with a good fight.
And then came the final jab, not just criticism of Canelo, but glowing praise for Crawford. Arum made it clear, when you buy a Crawford fight, you're not paying for a name, you're paying for a real fighter who shows up every time.
So again, but give him credit. Terence Crawford hasn't been that way. Terence Crawford is a real old school professional fighter who wants to do his best every fight that he's in.
So while others are debating size, age, or strategy, Bob Arum is asking a different question. Is Canelo still a fighter or just a businessman in gloves? While Bob Arum questioned Canelo's motivation, Caleb Plant is questioning whether the man in the ring is even the same Canelo Alvarez. The former world champion who shared the ring with Canelo in 2021 gave a sharp and honest assessment after watching Canelo's recent performance against William Skull.
No, I don't think it's the same Canelo. Not quite, but also I kind of figured it was going to be like that, honestly.
Plant said the warning signs were already there. He brought up Canelo's own admission in past interviews that he doesn't like fighting slick movers, fighters who stay on the outside, box smart, and don't just walk into his power.
You know, I heard Canelo say in the interview, like, I don't really like fighting guys who move around that much like that, and William Skull being a Cuban fighter, like, I knew he was going to do that. And so was curious to see, you know, how Canelo would handle that. And
he said while Canelo cut the ring off decently, it didn't look like he was facing someone who really wanted to win, and that exposed another issue. The fight just wasn't exciting. But then Plant turned his focus to what's next, Crawford. And unlike William Skull, Caleb knows Crawford is coming for everything, not just a paycheck, but a legacy.
You know, he cut the ring off well, but that guy just, I felt like he didn't really want no part. And it makes for not as appetizing fight, but still got that fight in September with him and Crawford, so we'll see.
And while Plant acknowledged that Canelo versus Skull was awkward because of style clashes, he made it clear Crawford is nothing like Skull, and fans should expect a completely different type of fight.
I think it's a stylistic matchup, you know, and William Skull don't fight nothing like Terence Crawford. So we're not going to see the same type of fight come September. I think we're going to see a great fight, real good fight.
In other words, Plant believes Canelo is beatable, especially by a sharp, fluid technician like Crawford, who's not just slick, but ruthless when it counts. And if this version of Canelo shows up in September, according to Caleb, it might be a long night. As more voices from the boxing world weigh in on the mega fight between Terence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez, legendary commentator Jim Lampley adds his unique perspective, and while he doesn't deny the size concerns, he believes the ingredients are still there for something explosive. Lampley, known for his sharp eye and poetic takes on the sport, acknowledged that the weight disparity gives him pause. But even with that, he's not betting against the action.
Crawford is going to fight Canelo, because even if I have some doubts and misgivings about the size matchup, it is two action fighters who like to fight aggressively at times, not all the times, going against each other, and we'll see who can open the other person's tuna can. so to speak.
It's classic Lampley, colorful, metaphorical, but spot on. He's not fully sold on whether Crawford can break through the physical differences, but he also sees that both fighters have the ability to bring chaos at any moment. That makes this matchup more than just a size puzzle. It's a test of who can force the other out of their comfort zone and crack their composure. And in that kind of tactical war, Lampley knows Crawford's timing, precision, and versatility are dangerous tools, especially against a version of Canelo that's being criticized for slowing down. In a fight like this, one punch or one adjustment might open the can, and Lampley's just as curious as the rest of us to see who does it first. While critics argue Canelo Alvarez's size and strength will overwhelm Terence Crawford, Bud himself completely disagrees, and he's not afraid to get technical. Speaking with calm assurance, Crawford pointed to the physical tools that he believes tilt the fight in his favor. Crawford made it clear, this isn't about brute force, it's about control, IQ, and experience. And while he acknowledged Canelo's knockout power, he wasn't impressed by the list of names on that resume.
I feel I got the speed over Canelo. I got the reach over him. He might got the size, the power. I got the better skills, boxing skills.
Would it be more of a cat and mouse? The reality is Canelo does put people out. From Kirkland to Amir Khan to just...
Don't do
obviously,
I'm just saying, man.
No, but he's not. Kovalev.
Kovalev was older. He does.
Billy Joe.
Don't get me wrong. He does have a lot of power, but all those guys that you name is not as skillful as me. I'm sorry. No disrespect to none of those fighters. The skill level is nice.
He's not being cocky. He's being cold, calculated, and confident. For Crawford, it's not just about surviving Canelo's power. It's about outclassing it. But skills aside, how does Crawford see the actual fight playing out? He didn't sugarcoat it. It's not an easy night, but it's a fight he's been mentally and physically ready for his entire career. He added that the more fans doubt him, the more determined he becomes. It's not just about glory, it's personal. And after years of studying Canelo, Crawford says he's seen enough.
Canelo is a great fighter. Like, I always had respect for Canelo, but I just believe in my skills. The fact that people doubt me, it just fueled me even more, try to get the fight even more. And I'm watching him, I'm like, man, I can beat this dude. I've been fighting people bigger than me all my life, and I always came out on top. You gonna get hit. It's a fight. He gonna get hit too. It'll be good.
No excuses, no weight clauses, just Terence Crawford stepping up, not just to fight Canelo, but to beat him on skill, timing, and will. Split on how Crawford versus Canelo plays out, one of the most telling opinions comes from someone who's actually been in the ring with Crawford, Israel Madrimov, his most recent opponent. Speaking candidly about the potential matchup, Madrimov didn't try to oversimplify it. He acknowledged the strengths on both sides and laid out a brutally honest assessment.
If 12 rounds, Crawford win, I think. If knockout, it's Canelo.
What makes Crawford so difficult to fight against?
He has power, smart, in more practical.
He has more experience.
This isn't coming from hype, it's coming from a fighter who's felt Crawford's rhythm, footwork, and ring IQ firsthand. Madrimov understands just how hard it is to beat Crawford over the distance, especially if you let him build momentum. But at the same time, he didn't ignore the threat Canelo poses when he lands clean. One punch from Canelo can flip the entire fight, and that's a risk even Crawford's toughest fans have to admit. While the size difference between Canelo and Crawford continues to dominate headlines, not every former opponent sees it as a deal breaker. In fact, Amir Khan, who's faced both men inside the ring, says Crawford not only has the tools, but the intelligence to win. Speaking on the potential mega fight, Khan dismissed the narrative that Crawford would be too small or overwhelmed. Instead, he emphasized Crawford's underrated strength and elite ring IQ.
I think that Crawford could beat him because Crawford is a big 147 fighter and is strong as well, which a lot of people don't give him the credit for. I think that fight if it does happen, as long as Crawford stays away and just boxes and be smart, he can win that fight.
Khan didn't stop there. He went further, comparing Canelo's recent opponent Jermell Charlo to Crawford, and made it clear that Canelo won't get away with the same things he did in the Charlo fight.
I think Crawford's a better fighter than Charlo, and he's a smart fighter as well. He switches and everything, so that would be a very good fight.
Coming from someone who was knocked out by both fighters, this isn't empty praise. It's a rare and valuable insight from someone who knows their power, timing, and skill levels up close. And in Khan's eyes, Crawford has what it takes to walk away with the biggest win of his career. In a brutally honest assessment, one boxing analyst summed up what separates Crawford from Canelo in more than just weight or resume. While Canelo is seen as the more decorated fighter, with experience across multiple divisions and opponents, this take focuses on something deeper, the intangible.
Canelo's really good, really good. But I think Crawford is special. I know he hasn't fought the resume everyone wants, but you have that or you don't have that ingredient. And I think he has it.
It's a statement that echoes what many in the sport are starting to feel, that Crawford may not just be undefeated, but unfigured out. His ability to switch stances, adapt mid-fight, and remain laser-focused under pressure has made him a nightmare to strategize against. But the quote doesn't shy away from giving Canelo his due.
Canelo's really good. He's tremendous. But could he be a tiny bit overrated? The greatness is within Crawford. It's in his desire, it's in his mind, it's in his makeup, where he came from. I know he's moving up in weight class, can he carry it? But those intangibles.
That final question, can he carry it, is the only real mystery left. Not whether Crawford is great, but whether he can carry that greatness into a weight class where every punch is heavier and every mistake costs more. The physical risk is real, but so is the belief that Crawford's mindset and background make him uniquely equipped for this moment. And that's the through line no one's ignoring anymore. Whether it's Shakur Stevenson, Bredman Edwards, Caleb Plant, or even Israel Madrimov, the men who've seen it, studied it, or felt it, all signs point toward one undeniable truth. Terence Crawford isn't just daring to be great, he's daring to dismantle a legend. They're not calling for a lucky punch. They're not hoping Canelo gets old overnight. They're predicting that Crawford, pound for pound the smartest fighter in the game, will break Canelo down mentally, physically, and tactically, and do it on his terms. One man on the rise, defying odds. One man being questioned by everyone, even his own past opponents. So now, it's not just about if this fight happens, but when. And when it does, will Crawford shock the world again, or will Canelo remind everyone why he's still the king of boxing? Your turn. Who do you think wins this clash? Drop your pick in the comments. Crawford's precision and ring IQ, or Canelo's power and experience?